thingy. And do the thingy. Maybe. Good morning. All right, let's let some people tap on in. How's everyone doing today? I've got a few things in here to share. Oh, talk about. Oh, goodbye. Meh. If you wouldn't mind giving me a share, that'd be much appreciated. I'll ask Mickey to do the same. Oh, what's up? How you doing, Mr. Wagner? Oh, sorry, I'm running late today. I overslept. But it has been a somewhat interesting week. Keep on hear people bitch, moan, and complain about Doge, which is just hilarious to me. I've never understood how people could complain about people trying to save you money. And everyone keeps on saying, well, Elon wasn't elected. Let me. Okay. Elon wasn't elected, but neither was Steve Dittelbach. Dettelbach? Whatever, no one cares about him. Or, Christopher Wray. Ray? Being your ATF and FBI directors. Yet you still, let them run a department. Doge is no different. I'm failing to understand how someone's elected position or appointed position has any bearing. Not every bureaucrat is elected. So complaining about an unelected bureaucrat in a position to do a job that they've been appointed to do seems rather ridiculous to me. I mean, we don't elect our head of Department of Health and Human Services. We don't elect our head of spy agencies. We don't elect anyone in the military. And all this bitching, moaning, and complaining over a man who has been saving us money and pointing out fraud, waste, and abuse. At this point, if you're against ending fraud, waste, and abuse, I have to sit here and just conclude that you're part of it. Good morning, Carol. Seriously. let's just. How can you be against the government saving money by cutting programs that do not work or do not benefit you? Thank you, Miss Carol. I don't see how this is a bad thing, especially when it comes to US aid. Now, caveat here, US aid isn't just something that the United States uses to help developing nations. To be honest, no country is that magnanimous. US aid was started under the Kennedy administration to buy votes in the UN. Once in the UN, we needed votes because we were going to treat it like a global Congress almost. And thankfully, that never happened. But to buy votes from the unaligned bloc, many of which were poor countries, we decided, well, we're going to put together something called USAID and throw money at them. Okay. So already we're starting off on a bad foot. We're not being charitable. We are giving countries money to do as we wish. On the back end of that, our spy agencies, such as CIA and SA, were using US aid to funnel money into some of these countries for special purposes. We all know that the United States has a penchant for overthrowing democratically elected governments. And at the end of the day, a lot of that money went to rebels or revolutionaries. Sometimes it's to buy information, yes, but a lot of the time it was to arm people. This has been a thing for quite a while. So we're already using what is supposed to be charitable money in non charitable ways. US aid has been nothing but a sham since its inception. Let me see what Mr. Wagner's saying. I think he's trying to do stuff just to be doing it. Going forward, we'll see if the changes that were made positively affect us in the long run. Well, I've got a few things here for you. And each dollar amount, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and just transfer that to a... Oh boy. Let's see what this says. Me. In 10,000 years of human history, please tell me the time when oligarchs, the truly mighty in government of any, had benefited the working or common people. I was going to say right after the French Revolution, but then they got Napoleon. So, no earthly idea. However, putting a country so far into debt that it can't function anymore obviously isn't going to help us. So each dollar amount I give you here, try to go ahead and put that into roofs in Flint or water heaters or hell, even just water infrastructure. 50 million to fund condoms in Gaza. That's not Gaza in Palestine. That's Gaza somewhere in mid-Africa. 1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces. Serbia, as in right next to Russia, as in Orthodox, older Eastern Orthodox Christians. These are folks who live so poorly after the balkanization of their area. I don't really think DEI is what they need. But okay. $70,000 for the production of a DEI musical in Ireland. $47,000 on a transgender opera in Colombia. $32,000 for a transgender comic in Peru. $37 million to the World Health Organization, an organization that we haven't really followed since its inception. $16 million in funding to the institutional contractors and gender development offices. $4 million of funding for the Center for Climate Positive Development. $12 million in support of services to the Bureau of Resilience, Environment, and Food Security. $6 million in non-emergency funding for redundant administrative supports for the Center of Excellence. $3 million in non-emergency funding to provide evaluation services for planning and learning programs. $600,000 to fund technical assistance for family planning in Latin America. Let me see. Here's the longer list. Oh, God. That's Serbia. Let's go on down a little bit longer. $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. $2 million for sex changes in LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terrorist organizations even after the investigation was launched. Okay. Hundreds of thousands of meals that went to Al-Qaeda affiliated fighters in Syria. That one I have to stop right there. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to feed people that tried to delete me. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to feed people that we spent a 20-year campaign to fight. Why are we feeding our enemies? And going off of that, we can also talk about Chelsea Clinton, who has received funds from man, my brain just stopped. From USAID to feed folks in India and Pakistan. All right, so far so good. India and Pakistan, fine. Charitable foundation, fine. But when it came down to the dollar amount per meal, it was $1,100. $1,100 per meal. And she is receiving something like $25 million a year. That isn't too many meals. Strange. It's almost like she learned how to launder money from her mother and father. And as I saw Musk and Trump, fine, are elite, and everyone in there is elite. Can you show me a random Joe from the other side? I mean, Tulsi Gabbard is a soldier. Marco Rubio's been around for a while. He took, head of Secretary of State. Well, him as a senator, I can think two prior administrations we had Hillary Clinton there, who was a prior senator. I mean, trying to say that not everyone was absolutely elite, and trying to point that out on one side, you have to point it at the other. You don't get regular Joe like you or me into higher government. Oh, good morning, Angela. No, you don't get regular Joe like Mr. Wagner or Miss Lynette in higher government. Usually government appointments are on are friends anyway. Oh, Angela, I got something for you. State Department plans. Okay, that was 1 day ago. Musk denies possible $400 million deal for Tesla. State Department halts plan to buy $400 million worth of Tesla from AP News. Washington Post. U.S. plan to award $400 million contract removes reference to Musk's Tesla. Washington Post, 19 hours ago. NPR. Trump administration says it has no plans to fulfill $400 million armored Tesla from National Public Radio. So, no, that. Then the fun part about this is that contract went in and that bid for it while Biden was still president. I love how the media just picks things up and running for it. Mark, it's unnatural for me to think anyone has my best interest at heart. Let's just take an honest look at absolutely everything going on. I'll throw this up for later review for people that want to come on. Unnatural to think billionaires have your interest at heart. Okay. I am very critical of everyone and everything around me. I'm the one that has been saying for, 3 years now, no one's coming to save Flint. And it's true, no one's coming. The only thing that I'm really interested in is my country not going bankrupt. When your country goes bankrupt, you have many wonderful things to look forward to, such as bread lines, food riots, raids from other people coming into your house just to get a fucking can of SpaghettiOs. I can honestly say I don't think that any of that money is coming to Flint or to regular Joe, you, or me, but I can say I would prefer not to have my country go under. That's just an honest truth of it all. Because what I keep for decoration on my back wall might actually have to be used someday if that were the case. I can point to any one of these countries around the world. 13 billion in federal contracts, mostly for SpaceX. You mean the same program that he used to bring down a couple astronauts that we couldn't? And everyone keeps on saying go forward. Go forward to what? I keep on hearing this as if it's some sort of end goal. What are we looking forward to? What are we going forward to? Everyone wants to go forward. Where? It's not that I'm against it. It's not that I'm a recidivist. I just want to know what the goal is. Because as far as I can tell, we've been sliding backwards for past 12 years. I wouldn't mind if we're going to slide backwards to stop and not to spend so much money on it. But let's see. Those astronauts weren't stuck in space. They even said that. Then why do we send SpaceX up to go get them? Because AP mission for 2 NASA astronauts that were stuck in space until next year. Yeah, they weren't going to die up there, but we could not get them back until next year. This is from September 28th, 2024. SpaceX launched a rescue mission for the 2 stuck astronauts in the International Space Station on Saturday, sending a downsized crew to bring them home, but not until next year. The capsule rocketed. from the AP, January 30th, 2025, Cape Canaveral took their first spacewalk together Thursday, exiting the International Space Station almost 8 months after moving in. Hmm. Let me see. It'd be nice if I knew how to spell. NASA Sonny Williams to Butch Wilmore, the two astronauts who launched on Boeing Starliner first crew test flight, have been in low Earth orbit since June. Want to set the record straight. They aren't stranded on the International Space Station. They weren't abandoned. Okay. But Live Science has called them stranded. CNET called them stranded. Still. And while Musk is picking up grants for SpaceX, is that a program that is not at least doing something? Programs that help the poor and middle class. All right, Mark, I want you to list those off to me because Social Security hasn't been touched. Anything, meals for seniors hasn't been touched. Disability hasn't been touched. Retirement plans have not been touched. So, what social support systems have been ended? Because while you want to talk about the federal funding freeze, well, if you guys were here with me the other day, 2 weeks ago, I brought up the federal funding freeze and specifically quoted that executive order where it said that nothing that is helping individual Americans is getting touched or canceled. So, what are you looking at that's hurting there? Because I can tell you on, it wasn't the first. Come here, you. Friday the 31st, I woke up and what do you know? My payment came through. Pell Grants and student loans. Let me tell you something fun about student loans. I don't want to say older because that's insulting, but we'll say you're a slightly more aged person than I am, I believe. The United States Student Loan Program, hell, college in general. College in general used to be so much cheaper. Someone using it's not the post 9/11 GI Bill, it's the previous GI Bill, could go to Harvard for 3 years on it. Once the United States government started backing student loans, colleges learned that they could charge as much as they want, and that loan would still be backed and paid, whether the student defaulted or not. So they decided to pump up that tuition, and that just caused a debt trap. Men and women have been paying on student loans for 20 years, paying the minimum payment, and what do you know? They owe more than when they left the school. So turning that off to me isn't a bad idea. Because these schools have been raking us over the coals. Just look, Mott, not even a large school at all. I attended, I think, a semester. Wanted something like $2,000 for tuition? $2,000 for tuition. And then student loans bring people out of poverty. No, it puts multi hundreds of thousands of dollars of poverty on their head that they pay back slowly. I have a friend who got a master's degree. Now, mind you, he grew up dirt poor in Tucson, Arizona. He now owes on student loans $120,000 for a master's degree in microbiology, a degree he can actually use, a degree he's using to help people and trying to find a cure to cancer. And every year that number goes up because while he's making his minimum payments, that number still goes up because the interest is inflammatory. Department of Education, I can talk about for a sec. So, the Department of Education's only purpose originally was to dole out money from Congress. Instead, after years, they decided that they were going to put stipulations on the money that Congress would cut towards schools. You must teach this, you must have this curriculum. Doing that in and of itself slowed down our schools tremendously. Our last generation and older folks, advanced placement, they're doing trigonometry. But when they decided to put every school on the same system, so the more advanced kids from areas like Flint, areas like Seattle, areas like New York, Sacramento, had to slow down and learn at the same pace as some Alabama backwater, that crippled the American education system. Really? Give me just a second here. Curriculum frameworks provide guidance in implementing the content and standards adopted by Department of Education. And you can see things like this when Common Core was directed to our students through the DOE. The DOE's sole original purpose was to take money from Congress and split it as it needed to go to the school districts around the country. Go to the states with the caveat that this much must go to these schools, this much must go to these schools in this district. How has it blown up so much further than that? Wagner, more than likely, however, yeah, it would basically, you would have to pay it. There's a reason for that because you signed the dotted line at the time. You are still on the hook for it. But not debt trapping our kids in the future, I can get behind. Oh, that's energy. Whoopsie. Yes, their curriculums will be different, but they roughly go along the same line. Annual performance. Required notices. AI guidance. Okay. Ooh, 1098E tax form. Mark, I am not doing that. So please don't take me out of context. But I will ask you, what do billionaires get out of making us poorer? Think about that for a minute. Mr. Wagner, for example, if you get below a C or 67% of satisfactory academic progress, you lose your financial aid and get put on academic probation. That goes on to the individual loan holder. More richer. Look, if you've got enough money to buy small countries, why do you want more? And once again, I'm not here defending him. I don't hang out with rich people. But I see a lot of confusion flying around. Just bringing what I know to the table. Because a billionaire doesn't care about you or me, period, end of story. Okay, we all know this. So why, though, is everyone getting upset about the second most scrutinized man in the world? The man can't sneeze anymore. Money, power, and control. Mike is Mike has enough money for. I'm guessing you're trying to type on your phone and you're trying to say Musk, but your phone was an asshole to you. Musk has enough money for 20 generations. Rockefeller, Mott, Vanderbilt all had enough. It's about control. It's a human trait. Okay. So then I'm trying to understand here. It's about control. Everyone is upset about a man who is unelected running a department. A department meant to save our country money. Hell, let us just see what they've pulled up this week. Doge website. Today's contract update: 167 cancellations with the savings of 115 million, including 2.3 million dollar for HHS assignments of existing program policies. Okay. Department of Education terminated grants to the 4 equity assisted centers totaling 33 million. One provided professional learning around CRT and racial literacy. Okay. Just canceled $50 million Biden era environmental justice grant to the Climate Justice Alliance, which believes climate justice travels through a free Palestine. Okay, we live in a society, period, that has always been like that. Going from way back when. Do you think merchants in Rome were doing physical manual labor? At least we have self determination and the ability to say, nah, I don't want to do that, and go find something else. We have the ability to build ourselves up, though obviously there's definitely obstacles put up in front of each and every last one of us. Well, colleges still make people lose their financial aid. I was told that was a law college had to abide by. Yes, then it'll fall to the individual loan makers or to a provision written into the actual college. So if the college says, yes, we will help you get student aid, there is no DOE, so there is no inflationary prices. We've had to lower our prices to be competitive again. Weird. Capitalism does that. competition lowers prices 99% of the time. If the college says you have to maintain this to receive, then they can't just blame the Department of Education anymore or the federal government. They're going to have to man up or woman up and say, look, if you don't make the grade, we're going to have to cut you. But hell, I took 3 years worth of college and I owed something like 20,000 before I got out. Thankfully, I just used my GI Bill to cover the rest of that. Okay, financial aid has always been there. Student loans have always been a thing, even before Department of Education. My point is, when the Department of Education started federally backing these loans, schools inflated their price because they knew they could charge whatever they want and guaranteed get paid. It doesn't matter if the student can't pay because the government pays for them. If you fall back, if you default on that loan, it is government backed. Same thing with my house here, actually. It's a VA loan. If I default on this loan, the bank still got its money from the VA. That is the deal. So when you have guaranteed income, someone cannot screw you out of that money. Well, Pell Grants, you just, right here, financial aid. Okay. Pell Grants, how much is the typical Pell Grant? About $1,200? Is that enough to get most of our kids through school? Because $1,200 doesn't really, I mean, yeah, it might get you a semester, but what about books? Okay. How many college programs actually go through and help? How many kids actually complete the program? What? I can when I went through my Pell Grant was like 1,200. Hmm. I must have just gotten the fucking low end of one. Yeah, student loans in college on bankruptcy debt. I do believe that happened mid 2000s, right? Man, how come I got kicked over with the Pell Grant then? Now I'm disappointed. Whatever. Still, I still don't believe that Pell Grants are enough to pay for a child's entire tuition. And are Pell Grants actually going away? Or is that something being pushed? Mm, Pell Grant will run out of reserves in 2025. It looks like this has actually been a thing for a little while. Pell Grant is now expected to run out of reserves by the end of this year and is expected to face a 71 billion to 111 billion 10-year shortfall based on new data from the Congressional Budget Office. Last year, we estimated the Pell Grant program would have run out of reserves in 2027, but higher than expected costs have expanded the program's annual deficit and have depleted the reserves that have been built up. The CBO projects these higher costs to carry into the future using data from CBO. We estimate the Pell Grant program will run out of reserves in 2025. Pell Grant costs will exceed appropriations every year over the next decade, leading to a cumulative shortfall of 71 billion. Under reasonable alternative scenarios, Pell Grant program could face a cumulative 10-year shortfall of up to 111 billion. That part might be true. But income based, I had zero at the time, but GI Bill definitely helped. When was this report written? February 5th, 2025. Interesting. So what is, Mark, real quick, what is a fair share? I've wondered about that for quite a while because majority of taxes, I mean, how much would you say is a fair share of someone's income? Okay. That's not bad. 3.27%. Okay. Is spreading wealth. God, I didn't realize I was hanging out with communists. Okay. If you were to take all the billionaires in the United States, and I've actually looked this up, and confiscate 100% of their assets, convert it into liquid funding, so straight dollars instead of boats and land, you could run the federal government for, what was it? I think it was about 8 months, 2/3 of a year, if you took every penny from every billionaire in the U.S. Think about that for a minute. We spend more than $21 billion annually. Well, no, that's our GDP. I think our actual budget is closer to 7 trillion. And number two, then you have to start looking at the laws and stop looking at the people. How are you going to look at someone who happens to fall through that crack of a law that was written for a congressperson's friend to avoid money, and he just happens to benefit as well? 13 billionaires in our country? No. $756 billionaires. That number includes billionaires in 43 states and DC. So, yeah. No, here, give me a second. Let me share this page. Where is it? Investment news. Here we are. Close these damned ads and make sure I have nothing crazy up in my tab. Okay. Share screen. Add to scene. Can I make this thing like the main thing? No. Other way. There we go. Ha! Figured it out. The United States continues to lead the world for billionaires, led by Musk, who could become the first trillionaire. Cool. The first population with super wealthy people growing, according to the new report. There were 1,050 U.S. based billionaires in 2023, and up 9.9% of the year over year, with a combined wealth of almost 5 trillion. Well, assets, yeah, but here's the funny thing about assets. Oh God, I hate that. That's that size on me. Go away. Stop that. Thank you. My face is too big. Here's the funny thing about assets. The more you sell off, the cheaper they become. So you're selling off every billionaire's yacht. I don't know. I'm not rich. I don't know what rich people have. Anyway, every billionaire's yacht. After the first one, the price starts to go down. And then who's starting to look for yachts? Nah. So this here said combined wealth of 5 trillion there, about US deficits 2024 1.8 trillion. Yeah, I guess I could. But let's take a look at the debt. Yeah, no, they could not pay the US national debt of 36 trillion. 1% big farm. I mean, 1%. Okay, I understand the term, but how do you tax them? And here's the funny thing. So do you say if you make X amount that you're going to pay more? Because, okay, if you make X amount and you're going to pay more, the first thing that I would do, first thing that I would honestly do if I were a billionaire, I'd move the hell away. Or do you put it as if you are top 1%, I tax you X amount more? Okay, well, top 1% moves away. Next group is now the top 1%. That eventually trickles down to, eventually it's you and I who are the top 1%. And that part right there, Angela, I agree with. That I agree with. So here's the fun thing. I don't blame the millionaires and billionaires and possible future trillionaires for our debt. That's just insane. I blame the people who write the laws and spend the money. So, writing the laws, number one, our tax code is so Byzantine and complicated that our own IRS, Internal Revenue Service, can't follow it. These are the people responsible for making sure they know how much you and I owe. So if it's so Byzantine, complicated, and such a labyrinth, then it needs to be scrapped and redone. Why? Because loophole after loophole after loophole after loophole have been written in for people to catch money or hold on to more money as favors for campaign contributions or for in kind contributions. It is my honest opinion that the tax code needs to be rewritten, and I'm all for a 10% flat tax. I really do vote for a Reagan-esque 10% flat tax, no returns. 10% of your income goes straight to the U.S. government. Doesn't matter how much or how little you make. If you happen to be Elon Musk and you make 10 billion this year, okay, 10% you owe 1 billion. If you happen to be poor little me, I make what, $300 taxable a month. I think it's like 312. $3,744. Idaho, $374. That's where I'd like to go. Oh, Mark, that is not true at all. There's so many countries in East Asia. Hell, so many countries in South America, especially if you find one of the more stable ones. And yeah, you can find a very nice little tax haven. Hell, Caribbean. Or I just go, if everyone's trying to charge me more on taxes, then I just honestly look at who's trying to charge me the least amount. So that's where I'm at. I don't know if we had a productive conversation. I do feel it was a fun conversation. But does anything come on Fridays or not? Not that I know of. So if you guys stick around for tomorrow, I got military show. Oh, I think Mr. Elliott's on tonight. Yeah, I think Mr. Elliott's on tonight. Military show Saturday. Can't remember what goes on Sunday now. And then Monday back with the morning bump. Wish you guys the absolute best, and I'll catch you in the next one.